Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Coleman Had a Dream YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us on what will hopefully be an enjoyable live stream. We are going to be talking about a few different things today. I'm going to be talking about the World Cup keepers, who's going to go to the World Cup for Wales. Ethan Ampadu, where he might end up next and what his situation is looking like, and also a few words on the Premier League from a Welsh context as well. Before we start, a couple of things. It would be great if you could like and subscribe our channel. We've been working really, really hard to kind of get things off the ground here. So it'd be brilliant if you could ensure that every time we go live, you get a notification telling you that that's going to happen. So please consider liking and subscribing the channel. Secondly, we've been working on something called buymeacoffee.com, which is something that will hopefully help us, keep this channel free for you. If you want to go to buymeacoffee.com/Coleman's Dream, you can go there and support us from anything from $5 upwards, £5 or $5, whatever. That would really help us make a lot of more free content for you, which is absolutely what we're aiming for. So, enough admin to be done. Let's start by looking at a few different things from a Welsh perspective. This week, I'm going to start off with talking about the World Cup goalkeepers. I started thinking about this the other day because I think with Adam Davis's kind of freak injury that happened to him in pre-season, and the likelihood of us taking just 3 keepers, even though there is going to be more space in the World Cup squad, combined with the situation for Danny Ward and also for Wayne Hennessy, I just thought it might be something interesting to have a little bit of a look at. So I've got here just a little bit of information, see if we can kind of scrap out a few things. Wayne Hennessy, obviously, he's not getting any minutes for Forest. Henderson has come in on loan for them and is obviously kind of their starting goalkeeper. So that's obviously a big thing for them. So I just don't see him getting much game time. The flip side for him in terms of obviously he's going to go to the World Cup, but who's going to be our number one? I think the thing that goes in his favour massively is obviously Rob Page really trusts him. He played in Wales's playoff wins. So that in and of itself is a big plus point for him. Danny Ward, since Kasper Schmeichel, not Peter Schmeichel, Kasper Schmeichel has been sold to Nice to join Aaron Ramsey. Obviously, he's going to get some game time now in the Premier League, which is great. They've started with a bit of a mixed bag, I think it's fair to see. Leicester, they've conceded 6 goals. He's conceded 6 goals in 2 games as part of that defence. So that's a bit of an interesting one in that obviously Page chose Hennessy above him to start off with in the first instance, but obviously Ward is now getting more playing time. Again, no doubt that he'll go into the squad. The interesting ones for me are based around Adam Davis and Tom King. Adam Davis got himself a move to Sheffield United, but got injured right at the start of the season. A freak training ground injury, apparently ahead of a friendly game against Scunthorpe. There's no actual kind of final date, if you like, set on when he'll be returning. So that's an interesting one for him. However, he was on the bench in the Nations League games and was obviously part of that initial squad. The big concern there is we just don't have a return date for him. Equally, Tom King got called up into that Nations League squad after missing out initially. It's an interesting one there because he's obviously playing every week for Salford. He's played 4 games for them. They've conceded just 2 goals in the league. He's also played an AFL Cup game as well. So there's definite question marks, I think, on who that third keeper might be. And equally, who the number one will be. For me, I think if Danny Ward is playing regularly, he's got to be the number one for the World Cup. He did excellently at Euro 2020, so I think he's in prime position for that, really. Equally, I think Tom King is making a great shout for himself to be the number 2 keeper, the number 3 keeper, that third keeper in the squad, just on the basis that he's playing regularly. Again, only 2 goals in 4 games in the league. And he's obviously the next in line on the basis that he was called up to that recent Nations League squad, was on the bench for 2 games there alongside Adam Davis as well. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think, like I say, Danny Ward will start and Hennessy. Personally, I think Tom King will probably go instead of Adam Davis. Just a bit of jeopardy perhaps on the injury front there and a bit of uncertainty, plus the fact that he's playing regularly, whereas Davis would behind Wes Fotheringham at Sheffield United when he comes back. Please do let me know what your thoughts are on this. The comments are open, or hopefully are open. So if you do comment, I'd love to know your thoughts on what's going on. Equally, I'll pop your comment up on the screen. If you agree or disagree with me, please get involved in the comments and let me know. Like I say, I think Ward will end up being our number 1 keeper, Hennessy the number 2, and I think King will be the 3rd keeper who will go instead of Adam Davis due to the uncertainty about injury. But I think it's an interesting conundrum there. Equally, things can change quite quickly and quite easily in regards to some playing time. So let's hope that Leicester don't get a replacement for Kasper Schmeichel and that Danny Ward stays as the number 1. Great experience for him to be getting that Premier League game time. As I say, if you want to comment, please do. The second thing that I wanted to reference here was going to be, and is going to be, sorry, Ethan Ampadu. I'm really surprised that he's not been involved seemingly in any way for Chelsea. They're insistent on spending more and more money on defensive support as well. So as they're looking to try and buy Fofana from Leicester. So it looks like he's going elsewhere. It's interesting to see that he's been linked with Empoli, where his former Venezia manager is now the manager, Zanetti. Equally, he's been linked with Spezia and another team in Serie A who I can't say, Corognese or something like that. All kind of middle of the road teams in Serie A. But again, it's interesting to me that he's being linked with these clubs in Serie A rather than Premier League clubs. There's apparently been some rumoured interest from Middlesbrough amongst 1 or 2 other Championship teams, which I was a little bit surprised at, to be perfectly honest. But all told, it's good to know that there is interest for him. I'm just surprised there's not more, especially from a Premier League level. I think he's proved in a Wales shirt he's capable of doing so much. So, as I say, I am a little bit surprised at that one. I think a lot of it comes down to whether there's a certainty about whether his best position is as a defender or whether it's a defensive midfielder. It's really, really tricky one, to be honest, because I think in a Wales shirt, I much prefer seeing him in a central midfield role. I think that suits him really, really well. But I think that his best overall position, just the way that football is played these days, is part of defending in a 3. Thank you very much for joining, Stephen Moore. Great to see you, mate. Thanks for getting on board and giving us a comment. I hope that means you're agreeing with my goalkeeper 3. But yeah, if you do have any thoughts on that or where Ampadu might end up next, please do comment and let me know. I think personally, Serie A would be great for him. I think he's managed to calm down his injury concerns. I think he would play regularly there, and obviously at Empoli he has a manager, or would have a manager there who trusts him, and I think that's super important. So it would be great. I think he's the only one from a Wales perspective who's not really kind of joined the exodus of making sure you've got a transfer ahead of getting some playing time. And I'm confident with another, what have we got, 2 weeks pretty much left of the transfer window, something will happen for Ethan Ampadu. But I think the sooner it happens, the better. Obviously, that the clock is ticking on what will happen in the World Cup. Please do drop a comment in there and let me know where you think Ethan Ampadu may end up going. The last thing on this very short YouTube video, which is very much the aim. We're trying to do this to keep these kind of short and sweet and kind of bite-sized, digestible chunks, is to talk about what a mad start has been to the Premier League season, but also to look at it from a little bit of a Wales perspective as well. Manchester City look like they're playing football on a different planet to everyone else. Some of their passing and movement is just absolutely unbelievably good. The talent and depth they have there, I mean, especially bringing in Haaland this summer is just frightening for everyone else, to be perfectly honest. And I think, given how Liverpool have started, I just see them going from strength to strength and running away with the league, to be perfectly honest. Obviously, I don't think Liverpool's form will stay as it was. As it is, sorry, obviously 2 draws in their opening games, both games coming from behind. They definitely don't look to me like they've got the depth that they previously had, however. I think that's the one thing that would worry me if I was a Liverpool fan. That depth is definitely not there. And I think that's going to be a real issue for them, especially going forward. You know, Nat Phillips came back and played centre-half for them last time, and he just doesn't keep the ball well. Some other lads coming on as the game progressed, some younger lads as well, which obviously it just again highlights, I guess, their lack of depth. And I also think up front, as much as I like Darwin Núñez, I think he's definitely a liability. He's going to get goals, but again, is he going to be the man to kind of lead that line? Looking further back. I'm just going to double track back a little bit before continuing on the Premier League chat. Stephen Moore thinks he'll definitely get a loan. He would prefer Italy too. Totally agree with you there, Stephen. I think Italy would be great for him. Paul O'Brien, thank you very much for watching, Paul. I think Ampadu and Rodden will go or stay abroad going forward. I don't think a Premier League team will take them, and I don't think they want to go down to the Championship. I think that's a good shout. I think that's entirely plausible. I think Rodden especially, I think this experience is already going to be hugely beneficial for him, playing in a different league with different quality of people around him and experience European football. He's going to be playing week in, week out for the first time since he was at Swansea City. I think that's great for him. Ampadu obviously seems to suit him, as I've said a couple of times, going abroad there. And I think that is definitely the way forward for him. I think on the continent, from my experience, I think the winter break will suit someone like Ampadu as well, and his potential injury concerns. So I think that's a key issue or key reason for that. Adam Dando, thank you very much for noticing all my my Hal picture in the background there. I've got a great selection of crap, as my wife would call it, but I would call it the Welsh Football Museum. But thank you very much for noticing, mate. Yeah, to go back to the Premier League, and again, if anyone else has any more comments, please do chuck them in, and I will read them out and have a bit of back and forth. I'm really interested in how the new teams are going to start and go on this season, especially from a Welsh perspective. Obviously, all three promoted teams in Bournemouth, Forest, and Fulham have a Welsh influence. Obviously, Harry Wilson's injured at the moment, so he's not being involved. However, I think they've made a pretty solid start, and I think they are a good sort of team, if that makes sense, that in terms of the way they play football, and I think they've also invested well as well. So I think they are going to be the team of the three of them that I think are the most likely to stay up. But hopefully Harry Wilson gets back to fitness soon and gets himself involved. That injury seemed to be a little bit longer to recover. Nico Williams, I was a bit concerned about him, as I mentioned on the last pod after the Newcastle match. He seemed to be completely overrun, not his fault at all, but I thought he was a little bit overrun there. And I think that he's really already developing in the Premier League. He had a great game on the weekend, their win against West Ham. He played really, really well. So that's exciting to see. Also, Brennan Johnson, again, maybe took a bit of time to settle himself against Newcastle, but was excellent. Could have got a goal the other night as well against West Ham. So fantastic that he is already hitting the ground running and is looking promising. Kiefer Moore obviously scoring goals on his Premier League debut, which is amazing. So as I've put there as well, real positive from a Welsh perspective on how many minutes a lot of our players are getting. And I think, again, that's really, really promising. To just go back to the Ampadu conversation very briefly, thank you very much, Nick Latham, for the comment. He's too good to not go anywhere. I totally agree. There'd be great options for him. But having mentioned Forest there, Operation Forest in the Welsh way there, which I'm a big fan of, could very well continue. Obviously, Wayne Hennessy, as I mentioned earlier, is there alongside Johnson, Brennan Johnson and Nico Williams as well. So again, I actually think that would be quite a good spot with him, a spot for him, in fact. Adam Dando agrees. Thank you, Adam. He agrees with Nick. Join up with Moore and Brooks at Bournemouth. Potentially, I could see that working, and I think they do need a bit more steel in their side. I think they play some nice football, but I'm not sure. I think Forest, they look very light in midfield to me. I think that could be a good one if he were to play in the Premier League. But I agree. I think that the likelihood of him staying in the Championship is going abroad. Sorry, not staying in the Championship is an interesting one, an obvious one. So I personally would prefer that, but I agree. If he was going to go anywhere, I think somewhere like that like Forest would be good for him. I just don't like the idea of him kind of seemingly always being in a relegation battle, as he was with Venezia, who went down, Sheffield United previously, who also went down. So that would be another thing for me. I don't really want him longer term to be in that situation at Forest. Although I suppose in the short term, just getting him playing ahead of the World Cup is definitely going to be key for him there. Lastly, I'm just intrigued in people's views, really, about the Battle of the Bridge, all the drama at Stamford Bridge over the weekend. Definitely a feisty game. Definitely a combative game. And as I said here, the Premier League kicks off. It definitely did kick off. Cucurella having his hair pulled. I think it's really interesting that the thing that made the headlines, if you like, is Tuchel and Conte holding hands effectively for quite a long time. I thought that was really overblown. I had a bit of back and forth with a few people on Twitter regarding, like the refereeing standards there. I mean, was that overblown? Am I being ridiculous? Or, should they be held to a higher standard because they are the managers, they are the leaders, which everyone else is kind of clinging to? So I did find that a bit interesting. For me, I think the whole thing, Tuchel running down the sideline, the handbags, if you want to call it that, and the kind of grippy handshake at full time, I think that sort of stuff is just part and parcel of football. I think it's all excitement. I think if you take away these things, I think the Premier League loses its kind of sparkle a bit. Great shout, Adam. At least Ampadu's had his hair cut now, so we won't get his hair pulled at Chelsea if he does stay in the Premier League. Good shout. Yeah, I don't know what anyone else thinks about that. If that was a bit overblown, I quite like the physical nature of football. I wouldn't go down the line of Souness this weekend, who was saying stupid things as he always does. But I do like the physical nature, and I do think that's important. And I do also think that the way that the media kind of portrayed Tuchel and Conte was a bit much. Lastly, as a Newcastle fan, I've grown up with a Manchester City supporting uncle, so taught to dislike Manchester United from an early age. Apologies to any Man United fans watching, but I do and did find that whole that game against Brentford highly amusing. Their start, the situation in general. Ten Hag seems like he's got absolutely no control over the players there, and emphasized by Cristiano Ronaldo and a couple of other players leaving a friendly early. Ronaldo came off at half time and missed the last 10 minutes of the match. Just seems like he doesn't have much control over there. And I just think that is just a big concern for them. And I wonder how long he might last, not just before he gets the boot perhaps, but also whether he just might leave. I just don't think he seems like he has any control over the situation. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. As I say, these are aimed to be kind of quick, bite-size videos. Sometimes it'll just be me. Sometimes I'll be joined by Ruth as well. Sometimes, as we have already, be joined by Gwen and Harris or a few others as well. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Please consider going to buymeacoffee.com/Coleman's Dream and get involved in supporting us there. All donations will be gratefully received. Helps us keep support rather than donations. Sorry, we'll keep this podcast and these channels free. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to everyone who's commented. Very much appreciated. And I'll be back with another one of those videos next week. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.